Hello everyone, on today's episode I want to talk about art and music and 8 specific ways you can bring them back into your life and create real value through those art forms. Hello everyone, today I'm excited to talk about those beautiful human inventions of art and music. And when I say human inventions, they're the universe's inventions, because we are the universe and therefore what we create becomes part of our universe. Quite often people say to me, "Oh, you got to be careful, that's a synthetic product, it could hurt you." And I go, well, snake poison is a natural product, they can hurt you as well. So we need to be more in line with what we do and more responsible for the things we do on the planet. So back to art and music, I'm going to start with a quote on the subject, and that quote is, "Every child is an artist. The problem is how to remain an artist once he grows up." The superstar Pablo Picasso. Pablo Picasso is such a cool bloke, and I wish I would have met him because he saw the world very differently and he was all about art. So, for me, and how this topic came up yesterday, I was with my friend Alex and we're driving to the beach, which is the second time for the day, we've gone for a swim. And I said to him, okay, we're listening to the radios on the songs on his radio deck, and I said to him, okay, mate, you know why music's important? And he said, no, why is music important? I said, because it only talks about love. It doesn't talk about income tax, it only talks about love. And in a world where they're trying to tell you about taking Viagra, paying your income tax, saving for your mortgage, getting health insurance, blah, 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 insert junk here, whatever celebrity they're trying to trade off at the moment, where they're trying to use Kim Kardashian's image to sell a product or whatever, or trying, to belittle people in order to make them feel less than to buy more. Music doesn't do that. Music is love songs. I mean, Adele is probably the biggest selling artist at the moment with her second or third album, and she just talks about love. There's no income tax songs, there's no songs about making sure that you have a balanced diet or anything. Like, it just talks about what's really important, and it always brings you back to what's important. Same with art. You don't see an artist's impression of of someone doing their hard homework. It's always about inspirational messages, and it keeps reminding us of that. As a personal story, I used to get involved in graffiti, and that was just what was happening at the time. I was embraced in that culture. My mates were graffiti artists, the gangs were graffiti artists, we just did graffiti, and you had your tag. Your tag was sort of your sign-off. What people sometimes confuse about graffiti is the tagging, which is the sort of text-based system, is really not graffiti. That's really vandalism. It just should be your sign-off. If people are putting their tag on walls, that's vandalism. But what graffiti really is pieces. So a piece is what you'll see with the multicolored dimensions, the 3D lettering, the images, the art, the real art. It looks like a painting on a wall. That's what graffiti always was for me, and that's what I aspired to do. And the greatest graffiti was always the ones that had a message. I remember one of another writer crew, that's what they call writer crew, did this piece, and I was just in awe. And it was Ronald McDonald with a chainsaw cutting down the Amazon rainforest. And the speech bubble was saying, "Eat Big Macs." And I went, that is art, and it's giving us a message. And from that moment on, I really respected graffiti artists who really had a message to tell. And sometimes you've got to paint on a train to get your message across, And I'm going to put it out there. Paint over it, government, if you don't like it, but sometimes the people get their message out, and sometimes they'll paint on your ATO, your tax building. Sometimes they'll paint on your train, sometimes they'll paint on your buses. But we're humans, we want to express ourselves. If you don't like it, clean it off, government. You've got plenty of my tax dollars to do so, but until then, we're going to try and get the message across. So what's our current concept of art? This incredible movement in the late 1780s was called the Romanticism movement. It's an incredible movement. You're in a period where the Industrial Revolution hit Britain, kids are working 12-hour days, machines, people, scientists and doctors were going, "We got it, man, we know, we've got science now, we're going to answer all the questions." And this movement called Romanticism just hit back at these dudes and said, "No, I don't care. We are souls living in a physical body, and our imagination, our soul is all that matters." And this concept that you can break down your body by science, and all that matters is science and numbers, not going to cut it. And my 3 homies, Shelley, Lord Byron, and Keats, who were the poets at the time, just dismantled this concept that science was going to be the way, and they did a great job. To give you a concept of how cool these dudes were, when Shelley, who was one of the poets, died. He died with one of his mates. He died on a sailing trip after his mate Keats had just died only a few months earlier. And when his body washed up on shore, his homeboy Lord Byron found him and got some mates together. And you got to remember, back in the day, it was very religious. You had these big ceremonies, and you went to church, and the priest did the blah blahs and smoothies on you. But they were romanticists. So you know what they did? They burnt his body on the beach, just sat there and was with him as he burnt. His heart didn't burn, so someone grabbed his heart out and he wrote an amazing poem called The Adonis. And if you ever get to read it, it was about one of his mates. They wrapped his heart in that poem and kept his heart. And it's like, that's the way to go, right? That's really cool. Your friends keep your heart, wrap it in your favourite poem. I take that every day after, rather than having some dude with a big hat shaking incense over me. So what are these 8 ways I'm talking about? So what are 8 ways that you can really understand the importance of art and music? Number 1, it brings you to the present. When you stand in front of a great piece of art or listen to an amazing song, you are there. It's hard to think about the boss having a go at you when you're looking at a great piece of art or listening to music. Number 2, as I said before, it always talks about the important stuff. It's always talking about love and connection. If you're Taylor Swift, you're talking about how connection breaks down all the time and you can't get it right. If you're Lionel Richie, you might be talking about how love is just magnificent. Either way, we're just talking about ways to connect, the important stuff. And if you need to know the important stuff, turn on music, good music, not crazy music. 3, it attacks the status quo. You can say stuff in music you could never get away with. The Sex Pistols in the 60s are a great example. Probably more recently, NWA. I remember I got suspended from school for bringing an NWA tape to school and playing it in the library. Thank you, good people at St. Michael's College. And what they were saying was just crazy. It's revolutionary. They were saying the police are violent. The police are corrupt. The neighbourhoods we live in have drugs that we think came here from the government, which is they were right. You might know a little bit about the crack epidemic in the CIA, the Nicaraguan Contra affair, but they were right. But it didn't matter they were right. At least they were having a go. And I've never heard things like it. And Dr. Dre, you're a genius. Eazy-E and Ice Cube deserve love. Number 4. Do we sing because we're happy? Or are we happy because we sing? And I think we are happy because we sing. When we sing, when we get excited, listen to music, we choose happiness. We can get into that moment. Number 5, something I'd love you to research, binaural beats. Alpha and beta theta waves. Our brain is the receiver for the universe. Obviously, those waves, those alpha waves, for example, short frequency waves, are replicated in music. So you have alpha and beta waves in music. Binaural beats is a way of training your brain through music. Check it out on Google. I'll leave a link here. Number 6, ask a kid to draw. They pick up some paper and they draw. Ask an adult to draw and they say, oh no, I can't draw. Well, hold on. If I went back 30 years in the past and gave you a pencil, you wouldn't give me that answer. So where did that answer come from? We get art beaten out of us. Beaten out of us. When we become good corporate citizens, the art is beaten out of us. And you tell someone to draw, they go, I'm not an artist. I didn't ask you if you're an artist, I said just draw. When we're children and we're fresh, we know that art is part of our life and we're just drawing all the time. My 2 little girls, they just draw the most amazing stuff. It's incredible. I need to get archives for all that stuff. They're always drawing. I'm just worried about the day they stop drawing because I'll know that maybe art has left their heart and just we need to remind ourselves to let it back in. Number 7, helps us imagine what's possible. My homeboy, Vincent van Gogh, the guy that cut his ear off, much more than that, actually sold 1 painting his entire life, but now has a success. Well, he said, I dream my painting and I paint my dream. Art and reality and imagination, this connection between what we see, believe, feel, know, and what's around us is so important. And finally, number 8, it reminds us of eternity and reoccurring themes. You see the hero's journey in so many works of art. When you watch Star Wars, you're reading Homer's Odyssey. These archetypes, these repeating patterns keep coming through art and music, love, abandonment, conquest. These things keep coming through, and it's eternity. These things will continue to recycle at vibrational frequencies and maybe even eventually combine into small amino acid proteins, become RNA, then DNA, and maybe that DNA will eventually start evolving into humans that have a prefrontal cortex that can then see and bring together and collapse the waveform. Who knows, maybe that's a thing. But until then, There's so much eternity in art and music, and it just keeps recurring. In fact, the Voyager spacecraft that we let off in the 60s is playing music. It's got a record, it's got a gold record on it. Remember the vinyl records? It's got a gold record smashed on the side of this space spaceship. It's out of our solar system now. Good job, NASA. I think you did well. When the aliens find the record, and of course they'll have a record player because they're all scratching and mixing with their techniques over in Alpha Centauri, they're going to play that, and it's going to play some music. It's going to play maybe some Bach or Beethoven. That's how important music is to us. Music and art, don't give up on it. It's part of you. Reconnect, and it helps to get rid of the distractions of the rest of the world. I can't wait to see you till tomorrow, but until then, goodbye.